It all happened so quickly. One moment, everything was normal, and the next, the sharp smell of burning filled the air, followed by the sight of angry, orange flames licking at the edges of the room. Emma's first instinct was to make sure everyone was safe. Olivia, her partner for many years, was there, along with her assistant, a young man named Daniel. In the sudden chaos as smoke began to fill the space, Olivia reacted without hesitation, throwing herself in front of Daniel to shield him from the immediate danger. Even as Emma saw the angry, red marks appearing on Olivia's arms from the heat, she insisted that Daniel needed to get to the hospital first. It made sense. He was her responsibility at work. But amidst the thick, acrid smoke that stung Emma's eyes and choked her lungs, she lost consciousness, collapsing onto the floor. The next thing she knew, everything went black. Emma woke up in the stark, clinical environment of the intensive care unit. The rhythmic beeping of machines was the first sound she registered. A nurse told her she had been out for a month. A whole month of her life had vanished into a blur of pain and unconsciousness. It was a slow, arduous journey back to reality. Each breath was a struggle, each movement a reminder of her body's fragility. When she finally opened her eyes and could focus properly, her first thought was to reach for her phone. There was a message from Olivia. It wasn't a question about her well-being, not a simple, "I'm so glad you're awake." It was a request, an instruction. She wrote that Daniel had also been hospitalized these past few days, and she wanted Emma to make him his favorite soup and bring it over to him. A cold weight settled in Emma's chest. In that moment, lying weak and vulnerable in a hospital bed, she saw Olivia with a clarity that had eluded her for so long. The day Emma was finally discharged from the hospital, her eyes still sensitive and red from the smoke, she made 2 phone calls. The first was to the fertility clinic to cancel their upcoming IVF appointment, something they had been planning for months. The second was to an airline to book a flight abroad, leaving in just 3 days. A sense of finality washed over her as she confirmed the booking. Back home, a palpable distance grew between Emma and Olivia. They moved around each other in their shared space like polite strangers, their lives suddenly on separate trajectories. Just as the confirmation text for her flight purchase arrived on her phone, Olivia called her. Her voice was sharp, laced with accusation. "Emma, what did you buy that cost so much? Do you think money just appears out of thin air? Everything about IVF is expensive. Do you even still want to have a child or not?" Faced with her immediate interrogation, a strange sense of calm settled over Emma. She had just spent a month fighting for her life in a hospital bed, and Olivia hadn't even bothered to call and check on her. Now, the moment she spent a couple of $1,000s on a plane ticket for herself, Olivia was quick to reprimand her. Standing at the entrance of the hospital where she had just been released, Emma took a deep breath and said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside, "Yeah, I don't want to do IVF anymore." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, a moment of silence. Then Olivia laughed, a short, sarcastic sound that held no real amusement. "Oh, so you're throwing a tantrum now, are you?" she said dismissively. "It's just a bowl of soup for Daniel. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? He's young and capable. He helps me so much at work. Look at you, you're not exactly 18 anymore." Her words, though delivered with a casual, almost bored tone, still felt like tiny shards of glass piercing Emma's skin. Before, she would have become flustered, tried to explain her feelings, to justify her actions. But seeing Olivia rush to protect Daniel from the fire, without even a fleeting glance in her direction as she lay unconscious in the smoke, something fundamental within her had shifted. A part of her had gone numb. Thanks to Olivia's offhand remark, a memory surfaced, clear and sharp. She and Daniel had been close since they were teenagers, around 18 years old. That was 12 years ago. 12 years in which they had always seemed ready and willing to start a family. But for some reason, Olivia had never been able to conceive. They had tried IVF, gone through the emotional and physical roller coaster of appointments and treatments, yet Olivia would always find reasons to cancel, often without even discussing it with Emma beforehand. Now, a cold, hard realization dawned upon Emma. Perhaps even fate itself was trying to tell her that Olivia and she were not meant to build a future together. She hung up the phone, the abrupt click echoing in the sudden silence. With a heavy heart, she walked over to the bedside table and picked up her wedding ring and the small, dried, up bouquet of flowers from their wedding. Without looking at them, she dropped them into the waste bin, a symbolic gesture of letting go. During the entire month she spent in the hospital, Olivia hadn't visited her even once. A few days after the fire, a small vase of red roses had been delivered, along with a card. The words written inside were simple, "Love you as before." For a brief moment, a flicker of something resembling warmth had stirred within her. But then, she happened to see Olivia's latest post on social media. It was a picture of Daniel, standing amidst a breathtaking display of what looked like 1,000 red roses, a wide, genuine smile lighting up his face. The caption, "Thanks to the best CEO for the well gift and for taking such good care of me these past weeks." Just a moment later, Olivia had commented below the picture, "It's only right to take care of you. Seeing you in pain broke my heart too. Too bad the card got lost. I'll write you a proper letter next time." The pieces clicked into place with a sickening certainty. The words on the card she received, the roses that had been sent to her room, they were leftovers, a mere afterthought from a much grander gesture meant for Daniel. And her place in Olivia's heart was clearly just as insignificant and disposable. A taxi pulled up outside their house just as Olivia was heading out the door. Seeing Emma getting out of the car with luggage in hand, her face immediately hardened into a scowl. "Emma, where on earth have you been this past month? The house is a mess, and you haven't even bothered to clean up. You don't want to work, and now I have to do all the chores too." Emma was about to ask if she had somehow forgotten that she had been at the fire scene as well, that she had just spent the last month recovering in the hospital, when her phone rang. It was Daniel. "Olivia, where are you? I miss you." The moment she answered, Olivia's entire demeanor shifted. Her face softened, and a genuine, warm smile spread across her lips. She walked out onto the porch, her voice light and cheerful as she spoke to him, reminding Emma to clean up the house as she went. Even as she walked away, her happy laughter drifted back into the quiet street. Emma's hand instinctively clenched into a tight fist. In that moment, she finally understood her true place in Olivia's life. Years by her side through good times and bad, never a complaint. But she simply couldn't continue living like this any longer. 3 attempts at entering the code at the front door failed before she realized Olivia had changed it. Emma sent her a text message asking for the new code, but there was no response. In the biting cold of the evening, she stood outside for 3 long hours until Olivia finally returned. Her voice was laced with irritation as she rattled off the new code. 1024. "If you can't even remember that, maybe you shouldn't come back. I don't have time for your problems." Only when she said the numbers did Emma realize their significance. It was Daniel's birthday. She remembered because when Olivia had posted a picture of them celebrating his birthday a few years ago, Emma and Olivia had had a huge argument. Emma had felt hurt by her constant prioritizing of Daniel, and they hadn't spoken for 3 days afterward. How utterly ridiculous. Over 10 years she had lived in this house, and not a single number related to her was part of the code. Yet in the relatively short time Olivia had known Daniel, she had given him something Emma had always longed for, a significant and meaningful place in her life. 2.5 days left until her flight. Returning inside the house, Emma opened a suitcase and began to pack her few belongings. The closet was overflowing with Olivia's clothes, taking up the vast majority of the space. She realized then how little room her own things occupied. She used to be so careful with money, always saving for their future, for Olivia's dreams. In the winter, she would even forego buying herself a new coat to save a little extra. But later she had discovered that all that saved money had somehow found its way to Daniel. With a sigh that carried the weight of years of unspoken disappointments, Emma folded her small pile of clothes and placed them carefully into the suitcase. A text message from Olivia popped up on her phone. "I've booked the IVF appointment for tomorrow morning. Make sure you get enough rest tonight. Stop acting like the world owes you something this time, and just make it work. I'm starting to think you're the one who can't get pregnant." Emma replied with a simple "got it," offering no further explanation. After all, she had already canceled the appointment, and she would be leaving the country soon. Whether or not Olivia could have a baby now was no longer her concern. After tidying up the few things that were hers, Emma suddenly remembered the IVF consent forms and other documents in the nightstand drawer. She picked them up for a quick look, a sense of morbid curiosity washing over her. That's when she noticed a few condoms missing from the box. She distinctly remembered Olivia buying them a while ago, and they hadn't used any since. They had been struggling to conceive, and Olivia had always seemed to believe that the problem lay with Emma. Over time, she had lost almost all interest in any kind of intimacy. Emma opened her phone and scrolled through Olivia's social media. Sure enough, she found a picture Olivia had posted just yesterday. It was a casual shot of Daniel sitting on their living room couch, looking completely at home. A wave of nausea washed over her. Driven by a strange, unsettling urge, she rummaged through the bedroom trash can. Finally, at the very bottom, hidden beneath tissues and other discarded items, she found the undeniable evidence. Used condoms clearly for two people. Emma collapsed onto the floor, the reality of the situation hitting her with the force of a physical blow. Her mind went blank, but her heart ached with a deep, quiet sorrow. She had initially hoped for a clean, amicable separation. Clearly, that was no longer an option. She picked up her phone and called the fertility clinic, telling them that she would not be attending any future IVF appointments. The staff member on the other end sounded surprised. "Are you sure about this, ma'am? If you don't come in, it will mean canceling the entire process. All the efforts and data we've collected will be lost. Are you absolutely certain you want to proceed with this?" Staring at the incriminating trash on the floor, Emma felt no hesitation whatsoever. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm sure. Please cancel everything." Then she messaged her lawyer, instructing him to begin drafting the divorce papers immediately. Over a decade of feelings for Olivia seemed to evaporate in that moment, like smoke dissipating in the wind. Olivia didn't come home at all that night. So when Emma saw her sitting on the couch the next day, casually scrolling through her phone as if nothing unusual had happened, she was surprised. Olivia, noticing Emma was awake, looked up and said sarcastically, "Well, look who finally decided to get out of bed. It's almost noon. Anyone would think I married a complete slob. Look at Daniel. He's been up for hours already, working hard. You're so incredibly lazy." A small, humorless laugh escaped Emma's lips. She used to wake up early every single morning to make Olivia breakfast before she went to work, and for just one day of sleeping in after everything that had happened, Olivia still felt the need to insult her. Before, her words would have instantly ignited a fire of anger within Emma, but now she simply walked past her, ignoring whatever she said. Olivia seemed taken aback by Emma's indifference, and her face darkened briefly before she spoke again. After Emma had showered and gotten dressed, Olivia gestured for her to sit beside her on the couch. Her expression was unreadable, almost hesitant, yet she remained silent. Emma frowned slightly, feeling a growing sense of annoyance, and finally asked, "What do you want to say?" Olivia finally broke the silence. "I can't make it to the IVF appointment this afternoon." Without even thinking, the words just tumbled out of Emma's mouth. "It's fine anyway. I already canceled it." Her attendance, or lack thereof, simply didn't matter to Emma anymore. Olivia looked briefly stunned by her response. Before, any mention of canceling an appointment would have led to a heated argument filled with Olivia's excuses and Emma's frustrations. But now, all she got was Emma's complete and utter indifference. "Fine," she said, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. Olivia leaned closer, almost disbelievingly, asking, "You're not even mad?" Emma chuckled lightly, genuinely confused as to why she should be angry. She simply didn't love Olivia anymore. So what was the point of getting upset? She simply nodded in response. Olivia seemed somewhat satisfied by her lack of reaction and patted Emma's head patronizingly, a gesture that now filled Emma with disgust, making her instinctively turn away. Obliviously, Olivia continued, "You should always be like this. Getting upset over every little thing is so exhausting. Honestly, only I could put up with you. Anyone else would have gone completely mad by now." Emma looked down silently at her phone, browsed through travel guides, offering no response. As Olivia finished her sentence, Emma merely said, "Got it," then quickly got dressed and headed out of the house. The lawyer had just informed her via text message that the divorce papers were ready for her to pick up. Initially, she had planned to spend the day resting and pick up the divorce papers tomorrow, but with Olivia back in the house, her presence felt suffocating, and Emma felt a restless urge to just get things moving. The cafe where she was meeting her lawyer was conveniently located nearby. After retrieving the stack of official-looking documents, Olivia soon texted her. Her message appeared on Emma's phone screen. Like always, she was asking what she should cook for dinner that night. Normally, Emma would have rushed out to the grocery store to buy whatever ingredients Olivia requested. Olivia had very specific tastes, quite different from Emma's. She disliked onions and cilantro, two ingredients Emma particularly enjoyed. But if Olivia didn't like them, they never made an appearance in Emma's cooking. Yet now, with the divorce papers safely tucked away in her bag, Emma found herself at the grocery store, instinctively grabbing all the things she liked without a second thought for Olivia's preferences. By the time she returned from the store, the sky outside was dark. As she opened the front door, Emma was immediately met with the sound of laughter. Olivia and Daniel turned to look at her. Olivia's hand casually resting on Daniel's leg, Emma pretended not to notice the intimate gesture, slipping off her shoes at the entrance. Olivia came over to help her with her jacket, her voice sounding slightly impatient. "Why are you so late? Daniel and I are absolutely starving." Seeing the smug look on Daniel's face made Emma frown slightly. Apologetically, he said, "Sorry, Emma. Olivia told me she was cooking, so I came over. If I'm in the way, I can leave." He made a move to stand up, but Olivia gently pushed him back down onto the couch, her eyebrows furrowed in mild annoyance. "What are you even saying? Emma can cook, no trouble at all. Right, Emma?" Emma placed the bags of groceries down on the kitchen counter, not wanting to engage in their awkward back-and-forth banter. Calmly, she replied, "If you want to eat, just stay." Their faces lit up instantly, a look of somewhat disbelieving relief washing over them. Olivia asked her, "You're not mad, are you?" Emma simply nodded, focusing on unpacking the vegetables from the grocery bags. Olivia didn't bother her any further after that, and went back to playfully teasing Daniel on the couch. Emma's flight was scheduled for the next morning, so this was technically their last meal together in this house. It felt like bringing a definitive close to their decade-long relationship. So, she decided to put extra care and effort into making this final meal. By the time the last dish was served and placed on the table, a strange quiet had settled over the room. Emma stepped out of the kitchen to see Olivia gently covering Daniel with a blanket as he had apparently fallen asleep on the couch. Her gaze lingered for a moment, and she felt a faint, almost imperceptible pang of bitterness. When Olivia saw her step out of the kitchen, her expression soured slightly. She pulled Emma back into the kitchen, chiding her in a low voice. "You said you weren't mad. Why did it take you so incredibly long to cook?" Calmly, Emma explained, "I made a few more complex dishes tonight, so it just took a little longer than usual." Without waiting for her to respond, Emma sat down at the table and began to eat alone. Olivia was already in a slightly foul mood, and seeing the dishes Emma had prepared, liberally garnished with green onions, only seemed to make it worse. Just as Emma picked up a bite of rice, she suddenly snapped. Olivia grabbed all the food Emma had painstakingly prepared and unceremoniously dumped it into the kitchen trash can. Olivia was visibly furious, but kept her voice low so as not to wake Daniel, who was still asleep in the living room. She pointed at Emma accusingly. "Emma, did you do that on purpose?" Emma didn't answer her question, just looked with a sense of regret at the discarded food in the bin. She had spent the entire evening cooking, and she hadn't even managed to taste a single bite before Olivia had thrown it all away. Emma sighed quietly to herself, thinking perhaps this was just another sign of their inevitable separation. Seeing her calm and somewhat resigned expression, Olivia showed a brief flicker of panic in her eyes. Emma thought she might have wanted to apologize, but her pride seemed to prevent her from doing so. Instead, she went back into the living room, gently woke Daniel, and then left with him. The door closed behind them in silence. Emma cleaned up the mess in the kitchen and washed her hands before grabbing her phone. A notification popped up. Olivia had updated her social media profile at 1 a.m. She had posted a picture of a beautifully arranged table laden with delicious-looking food. It wasn't until Emma read Daniel's comment below the picture that she realized Olivia had made it all for him, a late-night snack after their outing. Emma chuckled bitterly to herself, and a few stray tears started to fall down her cheeks as she finished cleaning up the remnants of their last meal together. She quickly wiped them away, but her cheeks already felt damp. It was funny how it didn't really feel like she loved Olivia anymore, yet it still managed to sting. The next morning, Emma left the stack of divorce papers in plain sight on the kitchen table. On top of them, she placed a short note. "I have no regrets about loving you all these years." I've canceled the IVF. Don't try to find me. Goodbye for good. Just as she finished writing the last word, she received a message from Olivia. She apologized, saying, I was wrong last night. I've been neglecting you these past few days. I'll cook tonight and make it all up to you, okay? With a sarcastic laugh that held no real humor, Emma ignored the message and turned off her phone. Then, grabbing her luggage, she walked out of the house and headed to the airport, boarding a plane that would take her far away. The few hours spent on the plane were enough time for a flood of memories from the past decade to resurface. The more she thought about it, the more the younger version of herself seemed naive and almost pathetic. In the early years of their relationship, she had moved to Olivia's city, leaving behind everything she knew. Aside from Olivia, she knew absolutely no one. So, when Olivia asked her to take care of things at home so she could focus on starting her own business, she had agreed without any hesitation. When Olivia's business eventually failed, Emma didn't even think twice before giving her a significant portion of her savings, $200,000, to help her get back on her feet. But as her company grew and became successful, Olivia seemed to completely forget about Emma's sacrifices and often criticized her for doing nothing around the house. She would constantly praise Daniel for all the help and support he provided, both professionally and personally. At the time, Olivia's words had made Emma feel small and insignificant, like she wasn't contributing enough. As Olivia and Daniel's bond seemed to deepen over the years, Emma had developed a constant fear of being left alone. So, she had pretended not to notice the subtle shifts in their dynamic, the way they looked at each other, the little inside jokes. Painful memories surfaced and gnawed at her heart, leaving behind a dull ache of sorrow and regret. It wasn't until the plane finally touched down on the runway that Emma managed to pull herself out of the swirling vortex of memories. Olivia probably thought she would stay at home, moping and waiting for her to come back and cook dinner as if nothing had changed. But in reality, Emma was already in Finland, a world away from her. Once she was off the plane and had collected her luggage, she turned on her phone. Immediately, a barrage of messages flooded in from Olivia. She kept calling, leaving angry voicemails, demanding to know where Emma was and why she had left. Even Daniel had sent her a text message, scolding her for her behavior toward Olivia. Emma glanced at the messages, a cold, humorless laugh escaping her lips. Then, without a second thought, she blocked both their numbers. She wasn't planning on staying in Finland for very long, just a few days to clear her head. So, she did some quick research online and found a small, cozy lodge run by people who had emigrated from back home. As she hailed a taxi from the airport, she felt a sense of warmth and familiarity, like she was already closer to home, even before arriving at the lodge. But there was a slight hiccup. Having just arrived in a new country, she hadn't yet had the chance to exchange any of her money into the local currency. Feeling slightly awkward and unsure of what to do, she stood outside the lodge, her luggage beside her. A young woman who was checking in at the reception desk noticed her predicament. Speaking fluent Finnish, she quickly explained the situation to the taxi driver and then generously paid for her ride. Feeling incredibly grateful, Emma pulled out her phone, intending to repay her immediately. When she looked up to thank her properly, she realized with a jolt of surprise that she was Mandy, the lawyer who had so efficiently drafted her divorce papers. "Mandy, what are you doing here?" Emma asked, genuinely surprised. Mandy seemed to recognize her and laughed. "Oh, hi, Emma. After months of intense work on a big case, I just needed to get away for a little break." Emma nodded in understanding. As they walked into the lodge together, she noticed that Mandy was also traveling alone. Just as Emma was about to say something, Mandy turned to her and asked with a friendly smile, "Well, since we're both here and clearly have some time on our hands, how about we grab some dinner together?" Shyly, Emma nodded and said, "Sure, that sounds nice." Just as Mandy was about to say something else, Emma's phone suddenly rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. Apologizing, she stepped into a quiet corner of the lobby to take the call. It was Olivia on the other end, using a different phone number, no doubt. Emma listened silently, a wave of weary exasperation washing over her as Olivia's angry voice surged through the phone. "Emma, why are you always so moody? What is going on this time? Just because I didn't go with you for that last IVF appointment, you're really going to go through with this divorce?" Emma had foolishly hoped that Olivia might have gained some perspective, some understanding after she had left. But it turned out she was just kidding herself. She had clearly overestimated how much she actually mattered to Olivia. Annoyed and not wanting to engage in another pointless argument, she simply hung up the phone. She grabbed her luggage and went back to her room to finally get some much-needed rest. Lying in bed, the whole situation felt surreal. Finland was supposed to be such a romantic and beautiful place. Over the years, Emma had mentioned to Olivia countless times how much she wanted to visit. She had always brushed it off, citing work commitments and lack of time. But later, Emma had seen her post on social media about how she had always dreamed of seeing the snow, and then suddenly, it was a business trip to Mount Fuji with Daniel. They had stood under the beautiful cherry blossoms, holding hands, making promises to never be apart. Emma tried to clear her mind of those painful images and finally drifted off to sleep. 10 long years seemed to flash by in her dreams like a disjointed movie. Waking up, all of it felt like distant memories, fading at the edges. She sat by the window, watching the soft hues of the sunset paint the sky when her phone buzzed with a text message from Mandy, asking if she was still up for dinner. She replied with a quick, "Okay," and was about to put her phone away when a video from Olivia popped up on another social media platform. The caption read, "Only an idiot would refuse such a patient and caring woman. Maybe he just sprained his ankle." In the video, Olivia, who was usually so meticulous and neat, was kneeling down gently putting shoes on Daniel. Emma smirked at the sheer irony of it all. Daniel was wrong about one thing, though. Olivia had never been that patient or caring with her. Her patience and her care were always reserved for Daniel. Emma changed her clothes and headed downstairs to the lobby. Mandy had been waiting for her there for quite a while. Feeling a bit guilty for making her wait, she said, "Sorry for keeping you waiting. Something unexpected came up." Mandy just waved her hand dismissively, saying it was no big deal. Relieved, Emma let it go. They decided to go to a popular local restaurant that the lodge staff had recommended. Only when they got there did they realize that the restaurant had another, more suggestive name, The Date Spot. They both chuckled a little, brushed it off as a coincidence, and went inside trying to act as natural as possible. While they were waiting for their food to arrive, Mandy shared her travel plans with Emma. She was quite surprised to discover that Mandy's itinerary closely matched her own. Their next stop was also Switzerland. It felt like a sign, and they quickly decided to become travel buddies, agreeing to navigate the rest of their trips together. The more they talked that evening, the more Emma realized how much they actually had in common. Just as Emma was starting to feel genuinely happy that she wouldn't be traveling completely alone anymore, two familiar figures walked into the restaurant. It was Olivia and Daniel. They looked so obviously in love, holding on to each other as if they were already a married couple. They were smiling sweetly, completely engrossed in their own little world until they spotted Emma sitting at a table with Mandy. Olivia, noticing a woman sitting across from Emma, stormed over without saying a single word. Standing directly in front of their table, she demanded, "Who is she?" Emma didn't even have a chance to respond before Daniel, who was standing slightly behind Olivia, interjected with a tone of feigned concern. "Emma, are you still mad at Olivia? So you're already out with another woman?" Mandy, sitting across from Emma, looked a bit lost and confused by the sudden confrontation. Emma couldn't help but roll her eyes at the dramatic duo. Olivia, seeing that Emma wasn't planning on offering any explanation, suddenly lifted her hand in anger, as if she was about to strike Mandy. Before her hand could make contact, Emma instinctively grabbed Olivia's wrist, a surge of disgust and protective anger rising within her. "Olivia, stop acting completely crazy," she said firmly, letting go of her hand without even bothering to see her reaction. Olivia looked genuinely shocked by Emma's unexpected move. She stood there stunned, a look of utter disbelief plastered across her face. Mandy, clearly annoyed by the whole situation, tried to gently pull Emma away from the escalating drama. But Olivia clung to Emma's sleeve, looking confused and almost childlike. "Emma," she asked, her voice trembling slightly, "did you really leave me for her?" Before Emma could even formulate an answer, Daniel, who had been watching the whole scene unfold, stepped forward, looking at Olivia with a mixture of concern and exasperation. "Olivia, why are you acting like this? Didn't you say you'd be with me once you finally divorced her? Why are you hesitating now?" Hearing those words, Emma yanked her arm free from Olivia's grasp with a bitter laugh. She had foolishly thought they would finally embrace, openly celebrating their long-awaited love. But unexpectedly, Olivia turned and slapped Daniel hard across the face, saying with a surprising amount of force, "What utter nonsense! I would only ever marry Emma. You clearly took my jokes way too seriously." Emma didn't care to witness any more of their bizarre interaction. She simply took Mandy's hand and walked away from the table. They didn't stop walking until the increasingly loud and dramatic voices behind them finally faded into the background noise. Emma let go of Mandy's hand, noticing that her cheeks were slightly flushed. "Maybe we walked a little too fast," she said awkwardly, trying to break the tension. Mandy didn't say anything, keeping her head down. Thinking she might be upset by the scene, Emma quickly added, "With all that unexpected drama, we didn't even get to finish our meal. How about we find another place? My treat. I heard there's this great little restaurant in another part of Finland. Would you like to check it out with me?" Finally looking up at Emma, Mandy offered a small, caring smile and said, "It must have been really rough dealing with all that back there." Emma paused for a moment, feeling a wave of emotion wash over her. All those years she had spent with Olivia, she had never received even an ounce of genuine sympathy or understanding. Yet this woman she had only known for a few days seemed genuinely concerned for her well-being. She pushed away the sudden wave of sadness, pretending it didn't bother her as much as it did, and said, "It's okay. We're divorced now. Let's just go eat. I'm starving." Mandy, sensing that Emma was trying to appear okay, seemed to drop her own slightly subdued mood. She playfully grabbed Emma's sleeve and led her towards the exit, chattering about random things to cheer her up. It was a feeling Emma had never truly experienced with Olivia. Her heart felt a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. After a pleasant dinner at a quieter restaurant, they headed back to the inn together. They made plans to spend the following day exploring Finland and then catch a flight to Switzerland. They agreed to wake up early the next morning to try and catch a glimpse of the famous Northern Lights. The next day, Emma and Mandy spent a busy afternoon setting up a small tent in the snow, a little ways away from the lodge, hoping for the best view of the aurora borealis. As dusk settled and darkness enveloped the landscape, the ethereal green and purple lights of the Northern Lights slowly began to dance across the sky. It was a truly breathtaking spectacle. Emma instinctively snapped a quick photo with her phone and posted it on social media. Mandy, who was clearly excited to witness this natural wonder, pulled Emma over to a small campfire that had been set up nearby. They gazed up at the mesmerizing lights, making silent wishes together. In the past, Emma might have wished for Olivia's happiness, for her family's well-being, and for her business to continue to thrive. But now, as she looked up at the swirling lights, her only wish was to see her parents again, to somehow mend the years of silence that had stretched between them. Mandy noticed Emma's shift in mood after she made her silent wish. She looked at Emma curiously and asked, "What's wrong, Emma?" Emma forced a small smile and decided to share a secret she had been keeping to herself for years. "Years ago, when I was first dating Olivia," she began, "I thought we would eventually get married and live happily ever after, with both our family's blessings, just like everyone else. But on the day we were supposed to meet her parents for the first time, my mom pulled me aside, looking really worried. She told me, 'I won't agree to this marriage.' I was completely puzzled and asked her why. She hesitated for a moment and finally said, 'Your astrology signs don't match, and that girl doesn't seem to like you very much anyway.' My dad had also gently advised me to consider marrying someone else. At the time, I hadn't listened to either of them, stubbornly thinking that my mom just didn't like Olivia for some reason. So when I insisted on marrying Olivia, and my mom threatened to cut ties with me if I did, I had just assumed she was angry and would eventually come around. Little did I know that for over 10 years after our marriage, we remained completely out of contact. 3 years into our marriage, my dad had called me. He said, 'Your mom didn't want you two together because we overheard her on a phone call. Your mom is just too stubborn to reach out, and so are you.' I was too caught up in the initial bliss of my new marriage to really care and never made any effort to reconnect with them. Now, looking back, I finally believed my dad. Maybe my mom had seen something I hadn't. Maybe Olivia had been seeing Daniel even before we got married." Emma chuckled bitterly, a pang of guilt hitting her. "Do you think it's too late to apologize to them now?" Mandy offered a comforting smile and said, It's never too late, Emma. They're your parents. A small spark of hope flickered within Emma. One of the main reasons she had hesitated to reach out to her mom was something Olivia had said years ago. When she had asked her the same question about her parents, Olivia's response had been cold and dismissive. This is our home now. Your parents didn't want us together, so why even bother? Emma had figured her mom must dislike her as much as Olivia seemed to imply, so she had never made an effort to contact them. But Mandy's simple words gave her a sense of clarity. I've decided, she said with newfound resolve, that once I get back from Switzerland, I'm going to apologize to my parents. The photo Emma had posted earlier had accidentally captured Mandy's silhouette in the background. Friends who were unaware of her recent divorce had commented, "You two are still so in love. Amazing after all these years. I'm so envious of your long, lasting love." Seeing their comments, Emma realized she needed to clarify things. There were too many individual messages to reply to, so she posted a general status update, explaining that she and Olivia had recently gotten divorced. Emma and Mandy spent a few more days exploring the beautiful landscapes of Finland before heading to Switzerland as planned. In those few short days, they had gotten along incredibly well, like old friends who had known each other for years. They never argued, and they were surprisingly in sync over the smallest things, often thinking the same thoughts or wanting to do the same activities. Emma couldn't help but remember the stark contrast to her honeymoon trip with Olivia, their only real vacation together. They had argued for 6 out of the 7 days, finding peace only on the flight back home, where silence had become a necessary form of truce. Perhaps everything really was destined to happen the way it did. Even fate had shown them their fundamental incompatibility early on, but she had stubbornly chosen to ignore the warning signs. On their last day in Switzerland, they went skiing in Engelberg, a picturesque mountain resort. Mandy was all geared up and eager to try skiing, even though she admitted she wasn't very skilled yet. She stood at the edge of the beginner slope, cautiously inching her way along. But she was a quick learner. Watching others navigate the gentle incline, she quickly got the hang of it. Emma stayed close behind her, ready to catch her if she lost her balance and fell. It was a warm, pleasant moment, suddenly interrupted by someone skiing past them at an excessive speed, spraying a wave of snow that was easily over a meter high. Instinctively, Emma turned and shielded Mandy from the blast of icy powder. Once the snow settled, Mandy glanced over Emma's shoulder, a mixture of surprise and amusement on her face. Emma's own field of vision was completely obscured by snow, so she couldn't quite see her expression. Mandy laughed, brushing the snow off Emma's shoulders and head. "What's so funny?" Emma asked, still a bit disoriented. Mandy wiped the snow off Emma's goggles and pointed towards a nearby clearing. The skier who had caused the unexpected snow wave had apparently lost control and fallen quite spectacularly. Emma looked at the clumsy figure sprawled out in the snow and chuckled. Then, the skier removed their helmet, and a familiar face was revealed. It was Olivia. She was pouting, looking off into the distance with an air of annoyance. Following her gaze, Emma noticed Daniel standing nearby, also watching them. Maybe Emma's stare was too intense, or perhaps it was just a coincidence, but Olivia suddenly glanced her way too. They made brief eye contact. A flash of what looked like panic crossed Olivia's face, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Emma turned away, pretending not to have noticed her, and focused on helping Mandy adjust her skis. Sensing Emma's sudden change in mood, Mandy also became a bit quieter. Emma lost track of when Olivia, still holding her skis, returned to the starting point of the slope. As Daniel was about to push off and ski down, he passed right by them, his skis pointed upwards in a deliberate motion. Just like earlier, when he had scattered the snow all around them. But this time, they clearly saw his intention. It turned out that Olivia had recognized Emma, and Daniel was purposefully kicking up snow in their direction, clearly trying to be disruptive. I was just about to say something, perhaps even retaliate with a snowball of my own, but Mandy beat me to it. She quickly grabbed a handful of fresh snow from the ground and threw it directly into Daniel's face. Before he could even properly glide onto the open slope, he lost his balance and fell again, this time with a surprised yelp. Mandy and I doubled over in laughter, the absurdity of the situation hitting us both. Olivia got up, glared at us with an expression that suggested she wanted to tear us apart limb by limb, but Mandy and I simply didn't care. Mandy even made a silly face at her, sticking out her tongue. Olivia apparently couldn't take it anymore and stomped over to Mandy, her face contorted in anger. Aren't you going way too far with this? Is this how you blatantly bully people? Daniel followed closely behind Olivia. Instinctively, I pulled Mandy slightly behind me, stepping forward to block Olivia's path. I knew Mandy had thrown the snowball in my defense, so when Olivia started to confront her, I felt the need to step in. Seeing my protective move, Olivia's eyes seemed to turn a bit red, and her voice took on a pitiful tone. Emma, why are you defending her? I let out a short, sarcastic laugh and retorted, should I be defending you instead, Olivia? Olivia pointed at me with a trembling hand, her voice rising in indignation. Emma, we've been married for so long. How can you possibly take someone else's side over mine? I impatiently reminded her. Did you somehow forget that we are already divorced? Do I need to read you the divorce papers again? Olivia was left speechless, her mouth slightly agape. Then Daniel suddenly interjected, his voice dripping with false righteousness. Emma, it's bad enough that you treat Olivia like this, but why are you talking to Mandy that way? You've been with Olivia for years. Sneaking here to ski with someone else behind her back is one thing, but now you're blaming her. Have you no shame? I underestimated Daniel's audacity to twist the entire situation around. Dealing with these two pests, my patience was wearing thin incredibly fast. If you care so much, I said, directing my words at Daniel, maybe you should try to keep her out of trouble. All right, Mandy added from behind me. Yeah, exactly. After that rather bizarre encounter, I took Mandy's hand, intending to find a quieter part of the ski resort where we could actually enjoy ourselves. I could hear Olivia yelling my name hopelessly from behind us. Emma, have you really forgotten all the years we spent together? I didn't turn back, simply replying over my shoulder. You're right, I did. We continued walking, or rather skiing, until they were completely out of sight, and I finally let out a long, much-needed sigh. It's not like you can just erase so many years of shared memories, but these recent happy days with Mandy had definitely helped me push aside a lot of the lingering worries and doubts, making my decision to move on feel even more solid. Even though Olivia and I were in the same country traveling around after she had seen my divorce note, she hadn't made any real attempt to stop me. When we had run into each other, she had pretended to be sad and heartbroken just to make a pathetic attempt at winning me back. Mandy, noticing my slightly pale face, offered a comforting smile and said with genuine admiration, "Do you realize how amazing you were just now? It takes real guts to finally say goodbye to your past. I honestly don't know if I could have done that." Her words made my eyes light up with a sense of validation. Really? I asked, a hopeful tone in my voice. Mandy nodded firmly, giving me a thumbs up. Absolutely. You're brave, Emma. You deserve to be happy. I couldn't help but laugh, a genuine heartfelt laugh that felt good after so much tension. The dark mood I had been carrying around for so long instantly dissolved. I realized she was right. I was brave. After years of being with Olivia, being so used to each other even though I hadn't been truly happy, leaving her definitely took serious courage, and I had finally found it within myself. The short trip to Switzerland went by incredibly fast. Soon, Mandy and I were boarding the plane to head back home. We eventually went our separate ways once we landed in the same city, but we exchanged numbers and promised each other that we would go diving in the Maldives together when spring arrived. Even though we had just said goodbye at the airport, I was already looking forward to our next adventure. It seemed Olivia somehow knew I was back home. I had barely stepped off the plane and into the arrivals hall when I saw her standing there waiting. I was a bit stunned for a moment, but quickly noticed that Daniel wasn't with her. Seeing the question in my eyes, she quickly said, "I fired Daniel. I'm completely done with having anything to do with him." I responded softly, a hint of surprise in my voice. "Oh," then added, "What's that got to do with me now?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, not getting angry as I had expected. She silently followed me as I walked towards the taxi stand and hailed a cab. Just then, she asked, her voice a little softer than before, "Emma, are you going to see your parents?" I didn't answer her question, but I think she understood what my silence meant. I didn't bother to engage with her any further as I got into the back of the taxi. Olivia tried to get in after me, but I gently blocked her way. "Why are you following me home, Olivia?" I asked, shutting the car door before she could even reply. Running into them abroad had been annoying enough. I certainly didn't want her showing up at my place. In the taxi, I dozed off for a little while, but then I realized that Olivia's car was following us. I sighed in frustration, instructing the taxi driver to take a slightly longer, less direct route. Luckily, Olivia had only visited my actual home address once, so she wasn't entirely sure of the exact location. The taxi driver was good, and we managed to lose her car soon after we got closer to my parents' neighborhood. My heart started racing with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It had been over a decade since I had last seen them. Would they even recognize me? The more I thought about it, the heavier the weight of guilt in my chest became. I didn't even know if they had noticed the small amounts of money I had been sending to their account over the years. As I was lost in my thoughts, the car stopped in front of their house. An elderly figure stood at the front door, gazing out into the distance with a hopeful look in her eyes. I got out of the car and realized it was my mother, whom I hadn't seen in so many years. Her eyesight wasn't as sharp as it used to be, but she recognized me the moment I stepped out of the taxi. She stood there at the door, a little overwhelmed, repeatedly wiping her hands on her clothes. My eyes instantly filled with tears, and one slipped down my cheek. I quickly stepped forward and hugged her tightly. "Mom," I said, my voice thick with emotion. She seemed stunned at first, just staring at me with wide eyes, but when I said that simple word, "Mom," she hugged me back just as tightly, her own tears starting to flow. Dad must have heard the commotion because he came out of the house too, calling my childhood nickname with excitement. We hugged each other and cried, a silent acknowledgement of the years that had passed, but no one mentioned why it had been so long since we had last seen each other. My mom, who looked like she had aged 10 years in my absence, suddenly had a bright smile on her face when she saw me. She seemed more vibrant, more alive. During my time at home, the dining table was always filled with my favorite dishes, the ones she used to make when I was a kid. Mom had even bought a whole bunch of the snacks. I loved growing up. Just in case I showed up suddenly and there was nothing for me to eat, Mom had prepared a lot. I noticed some of the snacks were actually quite a bit past their expiration date, but it didn't matter. I tore open a package and ate them in big bites under Mom's hopeful gaze. I ate too fast and choked a little. Mom laughed with pure joy, just like she used to when I was a little boy, and reached out to pat me on the back to help me catch my breath. I joined in her laughter, and soon we were both laughing so hard that tears streamed down our faces. At some point during my stay, Olivia had somehow managed to get my parents' address. I ran into her while I was taking out the trash. I noticed she was going door to door in the neighborhood, holding a note in her hand. A bit annoyed by her persistence, I pulled her aside into a quiet corner. "Olivia, we've broken up. What's the point of all this?" Olivia, still seemingly oblivious to my exasperated tone, stood there looking unsure before finally speaking up. "But Emma, I really don't want to be apart from you. I already fired Daniel. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask anyone at the office," she pleaded, her voice filled with desperation. "Please just don't leave me." I furrowed my brows in frustration, not understanding why she was being so persistent now. I spoke with a clear edge of irritation in my voice. "I don't care if that's true or not, Olivia. Don't you think saying all of this now feels incredibly fake? Saying you don't want to leave me now, what's the point of that? What about everything you did before?" Olivia looked genuinely stunned by my words and didn't respond for a long moment. I remembered her callous words from the past. Others might be younger and more capable, helping me at work in ways you can't even imagine. But look at you, you're not exactly 18 anymore. Right after saying this, I turned to leave. Olivia tried to step forward and grab my hand, but seemed to hesitate, unable to muster the courage. She watched me walk away and then asked one last, almost whispered question. "Emma, do you really not love me anymore?" I stopped walking but didn't turn back to face her. "The moment you instinctively shielded Daniel while leaving the fire," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "That's when my heart died." After that final brief encounter, Olivia never appeared in my life again. Later I heard through a mutual friend that she had somehow gone a bit strange after our breakup. Apparently, she took out a significant amount of money, $20,000, from her company shares and donated it all to charity. Hearing this news hardly moved me. I just took it as a somewhat odd and distant piece of information. Winter eventually gave way to spring, and soon it was time for my planned trip to the Maldives with Mandy. We hadn't been in close contact since our trip abroad, but we still met up at the airport as if it had been meticulously planned. We walked together under the warm glow of the sunset at the Maldives airport. The dim lights stretched our shadows long across the terminal floor, much like the seemingly endless possibilities of our lives stretching out ahead, promising to be wild and full of passion.